I'm being joined by an obedient and a chieftain of the Labour Party and one of the leaders of the National Consultative Forum, Professor Pat Utomi. Afenifere says you have to be Obidati compliant. You are, isn't it?
Well, it's hard to quarrel with principles. You know, the great Mahatma Gandhi, in enunciating the essence of our humanity, talks about the 7 deadly sins. And one of the 7 deadly sins is politics without principles. Afenifere has established over a long period of time a commitment to being principle-centered. It's hard to begin to quarrel with that today. If anything, actually, the challenge of politics in Nigeria is that there's been a significant dose of politics without principles. So I think that all you can do is admire and show respect for leadership of the nature that's principle-centered. That's what
Afenifere is basing their argument to support Peter Obi on ethnic issues, that it is the turn of the southeastern region of the country. That is the argument. That region of the country has not had a shot, and that's where they believe that it should go to them.
That's the principle that they have chosen to pursue.
Should it be the basis for electing who leads the country?
It can be if a polity sees the need for inclusion. Look, Switzerland, as sophisticated as, has that principle. They rotate between the cantons, this leadership. And they've been around as a democracy for such a long time.
Is it a law in Switzerland?
Yes, it is.
But it's not a law here in Nigeria.
Whether it is a law, laws are things that grow out of habits, conventions, and stuff. So British don't have a constitution, written constitution.
For not sticking to it?
Oh, but it shows something about character. If today it goes your way, you say this is principle, and tomorrow you want to flout it, and you say, well, it is not. Character is like smoke. It will always out. And character is what you do when no one is looking. So you can look at how people have conducted themselves, and you can see those who are principled, and you can see those who use principles as excuses.
Let me ask you, and let's gauge the support that the Obidati or the Labour Party movement is getting today. For example, the Afenifere leaders or the Afenifere as a group, how much of vote command do they have?
How do you count votes? They constitute a moral authority. You know, one of the best writings on leadership, by the way, by the great James McGregor Barnes, the ultimate book, Leadership, talks about moral authority as the essence. And it talks about the intellectual as a leader, for example, and it talks about moral authority. Afenifere has moral authority. And when you combine that moral authority with the fact that they've been able to build a very clear alliance with Pandev, with the Middle Belt, and together they have been speaking on this matter along with Ohaneze Ndibu. You will see that there is a certain body of opinion in Nigeria. These are major stakeholders who say this is what is principled, this is what is right.
It seems to be some kind of a Milocom principle too.
Well, I don't know what you say. Yesterday it was okay in Milocom when it was Jonathan. And, oh, Milocom, you know, it was okay. But if it's a Milocom this way, I mean, if there's any Milocom that is wrong, it is the Milocom of a Milocom. Because Kokon.
That's your friend, Bola Tinubu.
Yes.
How do you think that is not his turn?
Why is this his turn? What about the other people in Nigeria?
Both of you have worked together to...
We will work together any day if it is for the good of the people.
But you don't think his ambition this time around is for the good of Nigerians?
I don't think so.
What do you think?
First of all,
Tinubu
I'm very honest with you.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not a secret. I would not be seeking public office at this age. And if you see, I told my children, if after my 70th birthday, I'm running around and this thing, here's a paper. Tell the people that, look, our father has a retrogressive distance. We want to confine him. Certain things are good for certain times. Just a personal principle. I'm not saying it has to apply to everybody. But our country has suffered so much from having ailing leaders. And that was why, I can see that here, that was why the vice president stepped up. Because he thought that there was a challenge to that principle in that direction.
And you think, aside the vice president Oshibajo, another person on that bill probably is not fit? Is that what you think?
On which bill?
I mean, you're definitely talking about the APC now.
Yeah, I was talking about the vice president.
And you mentioned
in
that
terms of
Tinubu as the president
being very fit and all of that, the vice president would have been a fit person.
When you say Tinubu is not fit, what do you mean by that?
Come on.
In what sense?
Physically, you can see he's ailing. Come on, let's not kid ourselves. You can see it. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Let's be honest.
But he says he's fit. His party says he's fit. The campaign says he's fit.
They think so. American presidents go through medicals that are made public. Let him go through a medical with Nigerian doctors that's made public. Sure. It's the lives of millions of people we're dealing with here. Okay?
For Peter Obi and the support base, what gives you the confidence that this time around, Peter Obi can be an elected president of Nigeria? Does he have the requisite support that can win him a presidential seat in this country?
First of all, you miss a trend going on worldwide. Okay? And let me tell you about that trend. Italy has just voted a far-right prime minister. Why? Italians are fed up. Zambia.
For the first time since the World War II.
Absolutely. Zambia showed the fed-upness of the people when they elected their current president. Kenya showed that they were tired of the existing order. I think politicians should learn something, that the people have had enough of politics that does not work for them. The people in Nigeria are really angry. And if politicians misread it, if they try to divide Nigerians, as many of them are trying to do, they will pay the price down the line. I have on this show in the past referred to Robert Kaplan's Coming Anarchy. The truth about the matter is that the youth of Nigeria, I was watching something on pensions just today, and how there's so much withdrawal from the pension scheme in Nigeria, and what's the cause? Nigerians are leaving the country, and as they're leaving, they're withdrawing from the pension scheme. So there's such a momentum of Nigerians exiting Nigeria that a politician that thinks it doesn't matter that the people are fed up with the political order, that people don't see a future in Nigeria, is not a patriot. It's not a patriot.
You've referenced a moral and some institutional support base for Peter Obi, but I asked the question of what is required for a president to be elected into office beyond the moral and some of the institutional support that he's getting. So, for example, Afenifere is I mean, membership of Afenifere may not even be more than 100. And I don't know how much of votes Afenifere commands. All these issues come down to one thing: the voters and how they vote on that day. Many and millions of them that are perhaps not as educated as the political elite,
So
or
you're saying,
as the average
you're
elite
saying
in this
that
country?
this country should be run on ignorance of people being deceived
No, I'm
because they
asking
are
the
not.
question.
You're suggesting that because the
It's a
people are
question.
ignorant,
It's not a suggestion.
because the people are ignorant and you can fool them
I'm bringing you.
and buy them.
I'm bringing you to the reality box.
Okay,
Now,
here's the reality.
That is where you need to operate.
Here's the reality. Let me tell you what the reality is.
For the first time, Prof, I will borrow you some consultancy and advisory based on. When I say you, not you as a professor.
And I will pay. I'll pay you in lira. I'll pay you in lira.
Because you are obediently compliant and you are of the obedient movement. Those who have argued that beyond the social media, beyond the moral enclave, that the obedient need to move into the realistic realm of the people that vote. And guess what? I cover elections every day.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah.
It's interesting that some of those people who even vote, you know what they vote? They don't even know the candidate by name. They just see it's an insignia of a political party, and they voted for the last 20 years in that direction.
Yes.
I'm talking about the education of an average Nigerian voter, which may not be at par as to the average Nigerian elite. So the question is, that reality box, there's the need to get into it.
Let me provide you a sense for that reality box. That reality box is the median age in Nigeria is 18. Okay? It means that a huge majority of the Nigerian people are young. Those young Nigerians, even the most illiterate, are very social media compliant in the village. And they see the symbols, if nothing else, of an order that the young people are revolting against. They hook onto, and psychologically, no matter how illiterate they are connected to the revolt of the youth, which is a global thing, by the way. It's not a Nigerian thing. The young people are revolting worldwide against an order that has not focused on them. If this works in countries that are aging, can you imagine for a country that is as young as Nigeria? Look, I was in Cairo when the Arab Spring broke out. I saw them come back from Tahrir Square. I saw the passion. The old order literally came down. Well, how it was managed later is another matter altogether. But not to recognize that the Nigerian people are fed up to hear, and the biggest victims are Nigeria's young. We say that unemployment in Nigeria is pretty much, okay, we say 30-something%. Amongst the young people, it's like 60, 70%. Life is increasingly meaningless to them, and they want people who sit down and think about how to solve their problems, not those who want to exchange private jets between those who captured the state. Because that's what it is about, state capture and abuse of the common good. I am telling you that if this order doesn't rest, Nigeria is ready for blowout.
How do you think, or tell Nigerians, how much of the link between the Obidati ticket and the average Nigerians? Why do you think the Obi resonates with
fantastic,
the young people?
Fantastic. You make a very important point. The people who have what they call structure. How does the structure run? Structure comes from stealing public money and using it to fuel a system of people who are supposed to be loyalists, of thugs, of those kinds of people. Have you wondered that the Obidati movement has hardly spent 1 kobo of its own money? That young people are taxing themselves and organizing these rallies, whatever they are called. Does not surprise you? Is that not a new and disrupting introduction to public life in Nigeria? And it's good for Nigeria. We've talked about citizenship for a long time, and suddenly Nigerians are becoming citizens, and we're wondering, where did this come from?
So, Prof, this rally, for example, these people on the screen right there, are they self-organized? You're saying the Labour Party was not behind this?
Labour Party? Excuse me. behind this, fund it. You know the Labour Party. How much war chest do you think they have to be organizing rallies of this nature in the Nigeria of today?
No, I'm just being inquisitive.
These are organic.
So I'm okay.
These are organic.
So these are just
people.
average people.
Average people.
They are necessarily not members of your party.
They may not be. Some may be. Some may not be. But it is Nigerian people saying, we are fed up. We want something different. We want a government that cares. We want a government for the people, by the people, of the people. We don't want a government of politicians, for politicians, by politicians, which is what we have tended to have as politics in Nigeria. And it's not sustainable. So even if they get away and forge the process,
and so, I mean,
it's not sustainable.
We've spoken about anybody who wants to lead this country has to show some level of track record. I'm very certain that if you say, if I want to learn political economics, and I hear that Pat Utomi is going to be my teacher, I'll be very glad because I know you're an expert. Track record, what you have done in the past, you've earned it. What track record would you say Peter Obi has earned so much that is the best man for the job?
First of all, a couple of things. You don't say to a man who ran a very successful business, became the chairman of the board of a bank, which he was a significant shareholder of in his 30s, that he doesn't have a track record. He's proved himself in enterprise. You don't say to a man who took a state that was literally hobbled. Look, there was one governor of Anambra before Peter Obi, who I personally got the UNIDO country director to put together a team, because part of my work around institutions and economic performance dealt with clusters and stuff like that. And I pressured my friend who was the UNIDO country manager, became Director General of UNIDO, to get a team, World Bank, go to Anambra. Look, Newi, Onitsha are classic clusters, how they can model and build. They got there to see the governor. I don't know what the governor was doing. They waited for like 6 hours and just got up and walked away. That state was hobbled. They couldn't pay salaries. For, schools closed down, pensions, everything. Yeah. And Peter Obi made it work. I watched this man, and and I've known him for years. And he would call me up and say, look at the challenges here, look at what we're doing. And I would say, well, I think it's a fine way to go about it. And this man goes there, education system totally hobbled. 26th in national performance in WAEC and NECO. He goes in with a couple of interventions, 2-3 years down the line, they're number one. All right. I chaired the Multinational of the Year competition for Nigerian breweries, and first winner, best teacher, came out of that. All right.
Let's close the program now, and perhaps in 30 seconds, Peter Obi will be standing shoulder to shoulder with, in terms of competition now, it will be facing the likes of Bola Tinubu, who's been former governor of Lagos State for 8 years. Same thing with Peter Obi, a former governor of Anambra, 8 years. Yeah. A former vice president for 8 years, Atiku Abubakar, and Kwankwaso, a former governor for 8 years. So if you pick some of these states that these people have governed, would you say Peter Obi has done better than all of them?
He took on a much more arduous task. No, so much in the middle of Lagos. Don't forget that I was in the middle of that whole Lagos project. So let's not get...
you don't buy the Tinubu and the...
Let's leave that alone. Issue. It's not a matter of buying or not buying. Uba Marwa ran, was the state in the northeast, Borno, I think, as governor. He was not a superstar.
Military administrator.
Administrator. He came to Lagos, became a superstar. The fundamentals in Lagos are different for anybody who can think. So let's leave that business of superstar.
So you don't need a genius.
You don't need a genius to run Lagos well. That's one point to just make. But even more importantly, a friend of mine, now blessed memory, Dick Kramer, used to say that, in Nigeria, there are lots of people who say they have 32 years experience. And what they have is 1 year's experience repeated 32 times. Think about that.
Thank you so much, Pat Utomi. Sometimes to unpack what professors say, it takes some... it takes a lot of effort. But thank you so much, Prof, for coming tonight.
I'm glad I could come.
Thank you. Well, that's our show for tonight, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimberley. Bye-bye.